Hey, secret friends, welcome back to the Spotlight. This is, of course, our show where we talk to the folks in the creative space that make the stuff we love. And we have a true Klingon warrior with us in the midst, someone who works in the real world with us being a Klingon. This is Jen. And Jen, I didn't grab the pronunciation of your last name. I apologize.
Jen Usellis.
I
Yep.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
But
Very
Jen,
nice name.
and again, because I know that you're based in the Midwest, you're based in Chicago, as I recall, but a lot of people might not know much about what you do. So we're going to get right into that. But yeah, thanks for joining us. Of course, I'm also here with Peter, and if you're watching us on YouTube, you know that he always uniforms up. I always fail to, but yeah, Jen, let's talk about how you became the warrior. I would say warrior princess, but somebody's going to sue me if I say that. Uh,
The Klingon Pop Warrior.
how you became the Klingon Pop Warrior? Tell me all about it.
Yeah, so it's kind of a silly story. I was an actor who got a gig back in 2010. I did a lot of I have a degree in theater, and I got cast in the production of a Klingon Christmas Carol here in Chicago,
Mhm.
which had been performed in the Twin Cities up to that point. I had actually
Yep.
lived in the Twin Cities. I knew the artistic director, Chris. So Chris was like, "Hey," he messaged me and was like, "Hey, we're bringing a Klingon Christmas Carol to Chicago," he stayed with us while he was apartment hunting here, and so I was like, I always wanted to do the show when I lived up there, but the timing was bad, and so I was like, what do I have to do to what do I need to do? And he's like, well, are you allergic to latex? And I'm like, no. And so he goes, show up for the audition. So I went to the audition, and I got in. I was Mrs. Cratchit, the Klingon equivalent of Emle Cratchit. Um,
Hmm.
and I got to sing the warrior anthem the warrior anthem that you hear in Deep Space Nine. I think the most Koi Kalish
Yeah,
Pu.
Tulin.
um and I was really determined to get it right because the recordings were very wrong as far as the pronunciation goes. The pronunciation that you hear on the TV show is not correct. And so I was like, I want to sing this, I want to sing it right. And so I did, and it happened that Mark Okrand, like, he came to see the show with a whole bunch of other Klingon Language Institute members during the run, and Chris mentioned, "Oh, Jen worked really hard on the song to make sure she pronounced it right," and he was like, "She did." I was like, "Raw." But one of the other things that I did was I sang in covers bands for a really long time, and so Chris knew that I could sing. So in 2013, I was taking some time off from doing the show, and I got a message from Chris, and he's like, "Hey, the improvised Star Trek podcast, they need somebody who can sing in Klingon. They need specifically, we've done the translation for Kiss Me by Sixpence None the Richer. Would you mind if I gave them your name as somebody who, could do it?" And I was like, "Oh, heck yeah. Like, let's go." Cause at that point I hadn't done the show in a couple years, and I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So I got in touch with them. I did the song. We even I layered over some harmonies, and we were all listening back to it. And the first thing was like, why does this sound so good? And I was like, well, thank you. But then the other piece of that was somebody in the room, and I don't remember who it was. It was Chris Rathjen and Nick Wagner. Um, and who were doing the recording, or me, somebody said we should make a music video, wouldn't that be funny? So we did, and I jumped around in front of a green screen, we put it out on the internet, figuring like fans of the podcast would watch it, and like our friends, and family would watch it. And within 48 hours for 2013, we had almost 100,000 views. Actually, in less than, like, within 24,
Wow.
36 hours, we had 100,000 views.
Insane.
And in 2013, that was doing numbers. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that was a big deal. We got picked up by the Mary Sue. We got picked up by a whole bunch of blogs, teamcoco.com, Conan O'Brien's website at the time. They found us.
Wow.
And so it was this like really funny thing. And I'm like, we should do another one, but we didn't have the time. And so kind of shelved it. But I had gotten a couple of other translations from some members of the Klingon Language Institute. Somebody had translated Baby One More Time by Britney Spears. Somebody had translated My Heart Will Go On. And so I was like, oh, this is hilarious, you know? So, and it kind of fit in perfect. I was like these like 90s pop princess kind of
Yeah.
things with
Yeah.
me and Celine and Britney. And so I just sort of tucked it away. And then in 2014, I happened to have quit the band I was singing in. I knew a bunch of musicians at the time, and I got tagged by a friend in a post because it was right around the time that Frozen was had like blown up. Everybody knew Let It Go. And so
Yeah.
somebody was like, "Hey, why has nobody done Let It Go in Klingon?" You know, and they were like, "Jen Usellis, you get on this," you know? So I reached out to some of the KLI folk and I was like, "Hey, has anybody translated it?" And it turned out somebody did. His name is Felix Malmenbeck. He actually was one of the main guys who worked on the Duolingo Klingon app.
Oh man.
And
Wow.
so I was like, okay, well, that gives me 4 songs now, basically, in my back pocket. I've got Britney, Celine, and this. I was like, I could make an EP. I know all these musicians. I've worked with a recording studio. Like, what the heck? So reached out to some folks and then eventually got a couple additional translations. I got Love is a Battlefield and Bad Romance by Lady
So
Gaga.
perfect.
And so I was just like, that's 6 songs. That's like a very respectable EP now. And did a Kickstarter. And by the end of 2014, I released my first EP,
Woo!
figuring like, and I called myself the Klingon Pop Warrior as like a play on the pop princess, like the 90s pop princess, because it was like very 90s pop heavy. And figured, you know, like I'll get to do some conventions. It's a funny little thing, you know, like it'll be good for like a year, you know, a funny little lark. And here I am 12 years later, still doing the project. It got me on I started learning the language in earnest to start doing my own translations in 2017. The VP of Star Trek brand management followed me, liked what I did, and he got me the gig. I ended up being the Klingon language consultant for Star Trek Prodigy.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
and so it's just been one of these things where like every time I think I've done like kind of the coolest thing and I've like it's as cool as it can be, like something else happens and I get to do something like crazy cool. And
Right.
I just keep doing it and I use it to raise money for charity. I've raised almost $40,000 for Children's Miracle Network
God
and
bless.
like just, you
Nice.
know, kind of just doing my silly little thing and having a good time.
I love it. Good
Sweet.
stuff. Good stuff. Peter.
All right. Well, you kind of already mentioned it,
Yeah.
but maybe we can get a little bit of the details.
Yeah.
So since you started learning and have gotten it, I can talk. Once you were able to actually learn and translate Klingon to
Yeah.
the point where you got to be the language consultant for Prodigy, which is really awesome seeing like fans move into actual production.
Yeah.
But would you be able to tell us a little bit about that experience, like moving into that and then just what you got to do and what you got to see?
Yeah. So I didn't get to see much because a lot of it happened during the pandemic, actually.
Right.
True.
So the crazy story about it is that I had actually been on the Star Trek cruise. I went on the Star Trek cruise in 2018, 2019, and 2020. And in all of those years as well, I hustled the ship talent show. So, I mean, like at that point, my project was 4 years in. I had plenty of music. And so I hustled the ship talent show every single year. And I was having trouble getting into bigger conventions, like having trouble getting them to pay attention to me. And I was really, I was very gun shy about the idea of getting representation because I'm like, I don't care about making tons of money. I just want to go and sing my songs for people who will appreciate it. You know,
Right.
that's it. Like, and you know what? If I could get guest spots, and like that's even better because like then I might not have to pay for all the travel. And that would be
Right.
great because like I, you know, have a mortgage and work in day jobs.
Right.
So, um, I knew some people who knew the VP of Star Trek brand management. And so I was like, I just need to bite the bullet and reach out. And if this is the point where my project ends because I reached out and put myself on their like radar,
Yeah.
then so be it. I had an awesome run and I had a
Yeah,
really
right.
good time.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah.
I reached out to him. Well, right after the 2020 cruise, when I won the talent show that year, we got back. Now, if you weren't on the 2020 cruise, you don't know. The 2020 cruise ran from the February 27th to March 7th or something like that.
It's like
Basically,
10 days before the shutdown.
before the shutdown. We
Yeah.
were on the ship getting news stories, and like we had all gotten off at San Juan, a bunch of us, and we're getting like alerts on our phone about like rushes on toilet paper, and we're all just like, what is wrong with people, and
Oh Lord.
I mean, it was really surreal. So and even going on the cruise, like at that point, like they knew something, like people were getting sick, and we knew people were getting sick, but nobody really knew how it was being spread or what was going on, So as long as you weren't sick, you could get on the cruise.
Right.
So I emailed him when I got back, and he emailed me back within 20 minutes, and I was very much like, I don't know, like you probably don't know who I am, but this is what I do and this is what I've done the last few years on the Star Trek cruise, and like I just really want to be respectful. I've tried really hard to be respectful of, Star Trek, and I give pretty much all the money away to charity after I cover my costs. Like I just want to stay in your good graces. Like, tell me what you want me to do. Tell me what you want me, like, what can I do? And he's like, and what I didn't know was happening at that time as well was the Viacom merger was happening at that
Mhm.
point. So there were a lot of things up in the air in 2020. And so he was like, just sit tight, and like I've got some ideas. And I follow you. He's like, I don't want to scare you, but I follow you on social media. Like he goes, and I really enjoy what you do. And he's like, and I've thought about like how we could potentially, use you in some capacity. But he's like, there's a lot going on right now. He's like, just sit tight and like, let me get back to you in a little bit. And I'm like, okay. And then shutdown happened. I was like, I'm never going to hear from him again. And
Oh.
you're just like, that's it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
about a year later, he reached out to me and he was like, hey, I might have something for you. Can I call you? And I'm like, take my number, like I'm going to turn you down. No,
Yeah,
like
right.
you could stick your lawyers on me and I like my house. Like, and so he gave me a call, and that was when I found out that it was for Prodigy. He's like, they did some translations. He goes, but I found out that they just used some online thing. And he's like, I was like, no, 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 no. Like, let's, get somebody in. So, I got to sit in on the recordings. I did all of the translation work. And for the first season, it wasn't, I did a handful of like one-off lines. I got to do the Kobayashi episode.
Oh God.
They see the Klingons and the one Klingon goes Raicha, like, and then the ship explodes. That was they sent me just that like 3-second clip of the Klingon, and they were like, we need something for him to say that matches this mouth movement. Which I had found out happened to Mark Okrand multiple times.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
like he did similar, and I was like, he had to do it with humans. I had to do it with a cartoon.
Right. Can't fake it.
Yeah, right. They threw just every weird story that Mark ever told about stuff that they did to him during like the films and the TV. They threw at me with like 2 pages of dialogue. Like,
Oh boy.
That's
for this,
amazing.
it was
Wow.
hilarious. And then I did the big speech actually that they ended up doing at the end. I think it's like episode 19, where it starts with Gwyn speaking in Klingon, and then it's sort of like the camera like pans around her, and as it comes around, it switches to her speaking English, but it's like she's clearly supposed to be still speaking Klingon to the
Yep.
captain. I actually translated that entire speech. agonized over that
Mm.
speech because I couldn't reach out and tell anybody what I was doing. And then they only ended up using the first 2 lines.
Oh,
Ah.
cutting room floor. That's the biz, right? Oh my
Um,
gosh.
that happened, so that was the first year, and then they reached out to me again for the second season, and for the second season, like, the stuff I did for season 1 was cool. I got to be on the recording sessions and coach the actors, through it, so I got to coach Ella Purnell. So when Ella Purnell said that, like, the Klingon language consultant that they was wicked, like, in like the Comic-Con at home thing that they did for Prodigy, they were like, she was
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, she was wicked." I was like, "That was me."
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and everybody thought it was my friend Robin who did all of the Klingon for Discovery,
Mm.
because they specifically said she, so they just assumed, and then I was like biting my knuckle, like, "Don't say anything." Um, but for season 2, I actually got to retcon the song from Birthright, Yaja Keo, Yaja
Ooh,
Keo.
nice.
Um,
Rhyme in prison camp, yeah.
I actually retconned that song. It meant nothing. It was a bunch of gobbledygook that we call it Paramount Chol in
Mhm.
the Klingon language circle. So Klingon is Klingon Chol in Klingon, the Klingon language. So it's Paramount Chol or yeah, I think that's the main thing. But so it meant nothing. And so they were like, we need to subtitle it. And so I did the entire song, like the whole thing. And then they only ever did the Yaja KO line, and they even screwed up the subtitle.
Oh my god.
I was
It's
like,
always something.
I'm like, for crying out loud. But the song has been officially retconned. It means something for real now. I turned ye old ancient Klingon into modern Klingon and came up with like something that made sense. And that was the coolest one. And that getting to talk about that at the annual Klingon Language Institute Kepa was truly like a highlight of my Kepa that year, getting to share that because it's something that's been contested among the Klingon language nerds for
Yeah.
30 years. And I say that lovingly as one. So
Oh my god, that's awesome. So, I was pouring over your website. Such a treasure trove of like totally awesome information. But you have a plug at the end about you being ordained and being able to deliver weddings in Klingon. I got to hear about that. Tell me tell me a crazy story about doing that, or any story really, because it probably
I've
seem crazy to most people.
What I have not actually gotten the chance to do a wedding yet. I
Ah,
basically got the ordination just in case.
right.
Now I haven't actually performed a ceremony, but I have participated in. I've been to a couple of Klingon wedding ceremonies. So they're very fun. It's very short and quick, but actually kind of beautiful in its own strange little way. Um, and I love the fact that people have figured out ways to incorporate it into their vows and into their ceremonies. But I have sung at a few weddings now.
Yeah.
I sang at one of my very good friends, Peter, who's a part of the Canadian Klingon contingent. They do a lot of stuff online. I went to their wedding up in Canada, and I got to sing for their wedding, which was utterly
Aw.
delightful. They had me sing the recessional, I think it was. I sang their recessional song at the end of their ceremony, and then I sang their first dance. I sang the song for their first dance.
Nice.
And then
Hopefully it wasn't Baby One More Time. I'm hoping.
no, no, they had the recession was Seven Nation Army.
Oh, nice. From
And
Detroit, my hometown.
and then the song "Love Is a Battlefield" and it
Oh,
was specifically the Unwoman version that I got to do with Unwoman for the charity sessions, which is this like very cool like taiko drum and cello, like very haunting.
oh my
And they
gosh.
got married at this place like Science Sudbury or something. Like it's just like we were in a cave. It was the coolest thing.
Oh my
It
gosh.
was
Cave is very
rad.
on
It was
point for Klingon. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was very
Uh,
fun, and it was a cosplay wedding, so, like, tons of people came in, like, Star Trek cosplay and other kinds of cosplay, and, like,
Oh, that's awesome.
it was great.
Peter Peter, didn't you tell me you did a wedding once in Elvish or something, some
I
friends of
did.
yours?
Yeah, I did
Nice.
one in Elvish. Yeah. I spent like a week translating something into Elvish.
I
That's
did
awesome.
actually, now that I say that, I just realized that there was a wedding that I did for a couple, um, in Indiana a couple years ago now, and I was not the officiant, but what I did do was they did the Klingon ceremony, and so, they did it in English, and then as the cultural ambassador for the event, because I sang for the,
Oh my
like,
gosh.
the reception, um, but then as the cultural ambassador, I did the full ceremony alongside in Klingon, so he would say the lines in English, and then I said them in Klingon.
That's amazing.
I
So,
love it.
yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Peter.
Okay. So, as a amateur linguist, I have
Mhm.
to ask, since you're translating the songs from the original to the original Klingon, you obviously have to wrestle with keeping meter while changing the words. And I imagine you'd have to get a bit creative. Like I translated an English thing into medieval Latin, and you have to get creative with modern stuff. um, would you be able to share a moment where that you had to get pretty creative to make a line or just a song work?
Yeah. So I actually, when I do my translations, because I have a lot of experience in covers bands, um, something that kind of goes hand in hand with that, if you're good at it, or decent at it. I shouldn't say I'm good at anything.
Oh.
But if you're decent at it, is you learn how to make a song your own.
Mhm.
So, if I don't like just being a jukebox, like, for, when I'm in a covers band. I wanna take a little bit of ownership. And so that experience really kind of prepared me very well for singing in Klingon. Um, and also I did a lot of classical music, and
Mhm.
there's a funny story that always really stuck with me, about a song that I did by Mozart called Oiseau si tu les ans, and it was, basically somebody had challenged Mozart they basically told him he couldn't do a song in the French style, and Mozart was like, "Papa, I guess I can." And so he wrote this little song, and it's a lovely little song, but and I can't remember what the exact, if it's you sometimes sing things that you don't actually speak in French, or if it's the other way around, but he
Yes, I
basically
believe.
didn't
Yeah.
take it into account,
Mm,
and when he did it. And so he did this little song, and it's lovely, but the French were still able to be like, "Ha ha ha, you did not, you did." So
Oh.
Oh, um, so I think about that, and then I think about the idea of kind of taking ownership, and um I don't stress syllable count when I'm doing song translations. It's not Shakespeare, it's not spoken. Um, I let the notes do what the notes are gonna do. And so, like,
mhm.
I keep all the notes, but maybe I just draw out where I'm singing, or I cut a phrase a little bit differently. Just enough to follow where things need to go.
Mhm.
But I don't actually stress the syllable count. It's tricky when there's more syllables than there are notes, but if
Yep.
there's fewer, which is often the case with Klingon, I just don't stress it. I just figure it out. And I have gotten a little bit better about kind of fighting for rhyming scheme where I can. But I don't always even worry about that too much, although I have definitely gotten a little bit better about it. Um, what becomes the challenge is I do like to do cultural translations. So,
Yep.
um, you know, people who don't know are going to hear My Heart Will Go On, I didn't do My Heart Will Go On. Time After Time, let's talk, like, by Cyndi Lauper.
Mhm.
So you
Mhm.
hear Time After Time and you're like, "Oh, that's lovely. I know Time After Time and I know what it's saying," and that's fine. But if you know the Klingon language, you know that what I'm actually singing is, instead of the drum beats out of time, I'm singing the war drum beats in my heart. And if you hear, and then there wasn't actually one of the things that is a bigger problem is the grammar or the vocabulary doesn't really exist to do what people want it to do, which is a big trap with the Star Trek writers trying to do things. They didn't understand the grammar, so they just weren't doing things correctly. And so coming up with a way to say time after time was actually really, really hard. And I translate the choruses first, and then I kind of fill in the lyrics, the rest of the lyrics around the
Mhm.
chorus. But with that song, I actually had to figure out what the song was about in Klingon or what it meant to Klingons before I could figure out what time after time would actually would it become. And so the translation of time after time into Klingon is Vibchat Tikwij, which translates to my heart travels back in time. And the premise of the song is essentially like you're hearing the sounds of battle, like and close my eyes and think of you is I think the original lyric. But you're going to bed and you're hearing the sounds of battle and you're remembering this love that you had where you were kind of maybe like fighting back to back on a battlefield.
Mhm.
And but then in the heat of battle you got separated, maybe you both got injured and you got separated and you ended up getting picked up by totally different ships, and now you have no idea where each other are in the galaxy. You don't know, and you're just trying to like find your way. You like maybe one day you're going to luck out and you're going to find your way back to each other at when things settle down again. And um it's the one song I sing that makes me cry on occasion
Aw.
because I finished translating it. I was like, this is goddamn poetic. Like,
And I'll tell you, Jadzia never would have pushed Worf off of that door. She would have made room for him on the door. I'm
yeah,
just saying, if we're being
exactly.
literal translation.
Exactly.
Absolutely terrible. So I alluded to, I mean, I was on the Star Trek cruise. We were on 23. In 24, we missed 25, and they were on this past year. So this past year, you crushed it yet again with Aerosmith's Dream On. Fantastic. And then you and I met right afterwards, which is why
Yeah.
we're here now. So what's a song that you haven't talked about yet that you're just like, oh, I just knocked it out of the park when you translated and performed it in Klingon?
Yeah, it's definitely Time After Time is one of my favorites. It truly is one of my favorites. I actually really like uh I do like Seven Nation Army a lot. That was one that I started doing songs that were chosen by people to translate. Um and for charity. So like when I hit certain charity milestones, I would let people vote on them. And so Seven Nation Army was one that I was like really crossing my fingers would get voted on eventually, and it finally did. And I was like, yes. And so that one was really fun. But performance wise, also one of my favorite songs is one that it was the first song that I sort of I helped translate. I didn't do all of the actual translation, but I sort of helped with the cultural side of things, and like I worked on it with a friend. But actually performing it was one, and the actual studio recording of it just it blows my mind. Is Mother by Danzig.
Oh, man.
And it it was so funny in like 2019 or whatever when Mary Chieffo as Laurel like has that moment in front of the camera. He's like, "Call me mother," and I was like, "I got a song for that." Um, um, and that one's really really fun.
Yeah.
There was a fun little bit in there. There's this Klingon proverb. It actually is used, when the translator who did My Heart Will Go On used it in My Heart Will Go On, about the memory. It's the memory of you sings in my blood, which is such a lovely kind of sentiment. And when we were doing Mother, we actually took that and we made just a couple of tweaks to the grammar on it so that it became the memory of me sings in your blood, which was like
Ooh.
a lot dirtier and kind of sexy and like, very and I really liked that, and the recording of it, like I'm like I kind of wail on that song in the recording. Like I don't do that one live
Nice.
very often anymore, but like the recorded version of that is like Chef's kiss.
Ah, chef's kiss. Oh my
Cool.
gosh. All right, Peter.
All right, so more of a practical one.
Mhm.
If someone were to want to learn Klingon, what tips, tricks, and or encouragement might you give that person? Full disclosure, I have the books and I've tried and failed a couple times, but
Yeah. So, the first thing I usually tell people, KLI.org, is the Klingon Language Institute website. They actually have, a really good, excuse me, beginner level course on that site that will you take that course, you will pass the level 1 test. And I promise that's the case because that's what I did. I did that before Duolingo, uh, came out. So, I will always recommend that. Also on Facebook, there's the Learn Klingon Facebook group, which is
Mhm.
run by members of the KLI. And there's the KLI also has a Discord server, which is fantastic, and they regularly do stuff on the Discord server, talks and chats and like Klingon only type stuff and things like that to like really help you get it in there. I am not conversationally fluent by any stretch of the imagination. I focused pretty much entirely on translating.
Love it.
I can hold a beginner level conversation without too much trouble, but I'm constantly like racking my brain for vocab. Um, and so that's really good. Duolingo was really good. What I don't know is with some of the changes that Duolingo has made, what is retained from the original, like what it once was when it was being worked on by members of the KLI. I do know that eventually they stopped taking changes and accepting changes from the KLI. So I
Mhm.
don't know exactly like where that's at, but a lot of people had a lot of success with it. So I mean, it is good. It's a good tool, and it will help you pass the tests. But it's not always great about explaining every little
Yeah, it is not.
little thing. Yeah. So that's where, having a copy of the Klingon dictionary, which is 100% our Bible, like that's everybody's got a copy of it. And I also really like the app Bokwit, BO capital Q, lowercase w, capital I, Kagwit, apostrophe, which is a really great app. It's a dictionary app. So it's not going to give you like all the grammar and stuff like that, but it's a great app to like find words and kind of it does have some really like handy resources in there, like a prefix table and suffix information and stuff like
Nice.
that.
Awesome, man. This has been absolutely wild. God, thanks for chatting with us.
So,
What's on the radar for you currently? What are you working on? Where do people find you?
yeah, so I, along with so many other people, I actually lost my job earlier this year, but I have a new one. So,
Yay.
yay. And I am now kind of just trying to figure out how stuff is going to fit into my new schedule and things like that. So I will be at the annual Kepa this summer. I always go to Kepa. Kepa honestly is a great place to go. It's more uh conference than convention. It's small. It's a great place to learn the language, hang out with other Klingon language folks. Mark Okrand is always, he comes every year. And you also get to meet pretty much everybody who's worked on any of the shows. Robin's almost always there, although she may or may not because she lives in Canada. So she may or may not choose to cross the border. Um, and then but yeah, other people who live in the States will be there. And it's just a really fun nerdy 4 days that will blow your mind. So I will definitely be at that. I will be on the Star Trek cruise again next year. uh,
Yay, me too.
and I stream on Twitch a couple days a week, so I kind of roll the Pop Warrior into raising money for Children's Miracle Network through Extra Life. And so I do Extra Life. So I play games. Tuesday nights I play a lot of Star Trek Online, and spacey games. And then Saturday mornings are a mixed bag of whatever I feel like playing. Um and and so yeah, that's I'm on Twitch a couple days a week doing that, raising money for charity and having a good time. And I'm hopeful that I'm gonna get a Christmas album done. That's kind of the next album that I want to do. I've actually translated 7 public domain carols up to this point, and I'd like to do a few more,
Awesome.
and
That
make
oh,
that happen.
fantastic.
'Cause
That
people
is wild. Well, I will get I'll get some of those links from you, and we'll make sure that we have it so if people want to find out about any of that stuff that they can. But God, man, thank you so much for being here. It was, that's why I love being out in the community. April, my wife and I are going to be at Trek Long Island next month.
Oh,
So
yes.
look at yeah, looking forward to making connections just like this one that we've had the pleasure of talking with Jen. The Klingon, is it the Pop Warrior Princess or
Just Pop Warrior, Klingon Pop Warrior.
Klingon Pop Warrior? That's totally awesome. So
No princess
uh
here.
folks, everybody, thanks for tuning in. You can definitely visit our Patreon where we have hours upon hours of these great spotlight interviews talking to creators and folks in the space like we have talking to Jen. Thank you so much. We will see you. Send us off in Klingon.
Oh, kaplabat jeshuvwepu.
Couldn't have said it better myself. See ya.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.